but I want to talk about drug legalization, particularly marijuana legalization slash decriminalization. I guess first question is, do you have a perspective on the war on drugs?
Yeah, that's a good one because there are two very almost antithetical sides to this. One side says you can't have it, it's bad, shut it down. The other side says legalize it, tax it, and control it. And I can see the merit in both because I have a big, despite my background, I have a very big libertarian streak in me that says, leave me alone to do what I want to do with my body. I'm entirely responsible, and I'm absolutely sympathetic with that. The trouble is a lot of lunatics out there, we end up picking up the bill for their libertarian beliefs because we are our brother's keeper and we do look after, and as we should look after those that stumble, fall, and can't make it on their own. But I'd give every person out there the same advice I'd give my kids. And it's twofold. One, there are really important things to worry about. And this isn't one of them. There are serious issues to worry about. And it's not a matter of not being able to chew gum and walk at the same time. It's just that this is such a peripheral issue. It's not a libertarian issue of note for me. There are bigger ones. And that's an opinion you can accept or reject that. But here's a more personal one. I want you to imagine a brand new Ferrari. And I love Ferraris. They're just art on wheels. Now think of the most, and you can flick a picture of a nice Ferrari up on the screen when you edit this. And flip open the hood, and you can see the engine, and it's just engineering brilliance, and you hear the purr as it revs up. Now imagine someone gave you for nothing a brand new Ferrari. It's yours. It's sitting out the front. And the first thing you do is got a handful of sugar and you threw it in the fuel tank. Why would you do that? You wouldn't. The Ferrari's not designed to have sugar in the fuel tank. It's designed to have top-grade fuel. You damage the thing. And let's say it coughs and splutters a bit, and it's funny to watch this magnificent Ferrari cough and splutter a bit. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't get a 20-cent piece and run it down the side of the bodywork. You wouldn't get a can of beer and pour it over the leather seats. You wouldn't upend a rubbish bin in the back seat. You'd take care of it because it's magnificent. It's worthy of being taken care of. Now, everyone out there has this body, this thing, this vessel with which we go through life. Now, you can treat it well or you can treat it poorly. And don't get me wrong, I'm not preaching because I'm a saint. I'm not. I've lived a very unsaintly life. I can tell you, I smoked for nearly 30 years. And that's insane when you add up how much I spent on cigarettes. And then when you add up the interest rate I could have saved, I'd be a billionaire, man, just on the money I spent on smokes. What a jerk I am. But the point is this, you've got this magnificent body. And marijuana does nothing good to it, just like tobacco does nothing good to it. Now, it feels great to smoke. I love smoking. Drinking is great. That's why it's so popular. But it doesn't necessarily in excess the drinking, but the marijuana and the tobacco just does you no good. Why would you do that to your body? This thing is designed to perform at elite levels. It is capable of most amazing physical feats. And if this is in good shape, then this is in good shape. And if this is in good shape, the world is yours. It's just dumb. It is just dumb. Don't do it because it hurts you. It just hurts you. It hurts society down the track. It's a gateway drug. I mean, all these arguments, you can fight whether it's true or not. The fact is, when I was in Afghanistan, and we'll do one on Afghanistan. I'll show you. I'll bring some pictures and you can put them up. We're sitting up on one of the watchtowers, and I was taking a film for the reconnaissance report I had to write. And there was the green zone is where the rivers flow. The rest is just beige desert. It's a brutal place. And there were some paddocks, and there was corn, marijuana, corn. And I looked at that, and I thought to myself, now, why is Ahmed growing our marijuana? Because he gets more for the marijuana than he gets for the corn. And his kids aren't going to smoke it. So do I blame Ahmed for growing marijuana or the guy next door growing poppies? No, because they're not so stupid as to put this stuff into their system. We are. I'd just rather that everybody, male, female, old and young, realises that there's a better way to do things. There's always a best way to do everything. Everything. There's a best way to do it.
Well, I think there's quite a lot in that I would find I would naturally sympathise with. I'd like to raise a couple of points.
Sure.
Firstly, I would say life is short and you should have fun sometimes, responsibly. If that's what you're into, but. The first point I'd like to raise is What I'm concerned about is whether it's illegal or not. Not whether it's right or wrong to do.
Sure.
Because when something is illegal, that means the police can come and arrest you and take you to the police station and write you up, right? And so I basically think that under no circumstances is it appropriate for you to be smoking a joint or whether it's in the park or whether it's with your buddies watching Lord of the Rings and get taken down to the station for a write-up, right? I just don't think that crime fits the punishment.
Yeah.
I also think that there are way more dangerous things that we're happy to trust people with, right? I would say, for example, like you love playing rugby or used to love playing rugby. I reckon rugby, is probably much more damaging for the average Australian's brain than probably a recreational marijuana habit is. And I'd also say that alcohol is way more dangerous. Like nobody actually dies from marijuana. You can eventually die from lung related stuff, but you can walk into a bottle shop, get a bottle of whiskey, drink it, and in a few minutes you'll be dead. At the same time, if you go and smoke too much marijuana, you'll be asleep on your couch. I just think that it shouldn't be illegal. And I mean, when it gets talked about as an issue on the periphery, I get that it's not it's not an issue that's going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives, except I'm going to give you a few statistics from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, right? In 2015-16 in Australia, there were 79,000 marijuana arrests. Now, 72,000 of those were from for arrested consumers. 7,000 were arrested producers, right? So I'm thinking, let's say I have a little bit of marijuana with me, or someone else has a little bit of marijuana. They go and get arrested, that go through a criminal process. I'm kind of like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
And I feel like they should kind of be trusted with their own lives. I feel like there are a lot of high-performing people who have a recreational marijuana habit. I mean, the average age of marijuana smokers, according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, is 34, right? So they're often adults. And I just think we shouldn't be throwing all these people in jail. Not to mention the fact that we could be making a lot of money off it. We could be making it safer, and we're probably putting a few drug lords out of business. That's kind of my reaction.
Yeah, no, and I understand. I have great sympathy for every one of those arguments. I absolutely do. Look at it this way. Here's a range of drugs, and we've got tobacco and alcohol, and then we have this arbitrary line that says nothing to the right of that line. Okay, we've got this stuff now. To use your own stats, how much damage and cost to the community is alcohol and tobacco do?
Alcohol's number one.
It's huge. Massive cost to the community, right? But we've tried prohibition, doesn't work, because once something's in, you can't back it out anymore. And so, for historical reasons, it stopped at alcohol, tobacco. And tobacco, massive cost to tobacco. Vaping should be in. Absolutely, but they won't, because of, the big tobacco companies won't let vaping in, but vaping's a good alternative to tobacco smoking, right? But we've got this arbitrary line, and that's what we've got to come back to, this what's right and what's wrong. We have to learn to make up our own mind, because it didn't come down from God in tablets of stone. That's why we're here. Now, if we go with the marijuana, why not go with, ice? And why not go with it, and why not go with... See, if there's... At some point, we have to make an arbitrary decision. And the one thing I'd say is I'm not morally and, objectively correct. I'm just saying this is where I think the line should be. What you're saying is you think the line should be here to include marijuana, and I presume you'd say ice is going too far. But the same arguments you use for marijuana is the same for ice.
Yeah.
It's my body, let me do what I like. And again, you want to write yourself off, go for it. Got it. So once again, and it comes back to this fundamental issue of what we think a right is. What we need to understand is we get to choose our laws. And we're not going to say I'm morally superior to you. It's not about that. It's just what world do I want to live in? And each and every one of us needs to grow up, all of us, and say, I think that the line should be here, and I think that the line should be there. And we discuss it intelligently. And then on the balance of evidence, we can say, well, I think the line can shift here, but that's too far, but that's not far enough, right? And so we can have that discussion. So there's no moral, I'm certainly not giving anybody a moral imperative. I'm just saying, we get to choose what this country is like. All of us, every one of us gets to choose it. Now, you might be right on the marijuana thing, I might be wrong. If 95% of the country said, legalise marijuana. I go, great, legalise it. This is democracy. I'm happy with that. But I just still have my point that a country that smokes dope is not going to be as good as a country that doesn't. It's like a country that doesn't drink itself to death, but you can't undo something once it is done. That's why we're stuck with what it is. So it's not a moral issue. It's just what's best, what works best, and we have to figure out what works best.
Sure. And I think so. We have a line there. We have a line there in law. It would seem to me we don't have any such line in the street, insofar as you could, if a person doesn't know where to get drugs, they definitely know someone who knows someone where to get drugs.
I don't. I wouldn't have a clue. So don't ask me.
Well, don't ask me either. And what I'm saying is, like, if you go to these public, there's definitely kids on the Year 6 playground, right, who sell a little bit of dope here and there. If there's definitely some on the high school playgrounds, and it's like we have a legal line there, but we don't have a supply cutoff, right? The supply of the drugs is there for those who want them. And as far as I can tell, if the question is what works best, I mean, Alan Jones has come out in just the past couple of days and said he wants to look into drug decriminalization because everything we've tried so far just hasn't worked.
Except for one, sorry to jump in on you, except one reason why it hasn't worked is the politicians. That's your problem. It's not the coppers, it's not the law, it's the politicians that allow this stuff to happen. You can understand it. The war on drugs can't be won because the police don't want it won. They genuinely don't. As a group, there might be individuals that do, and they'll be terribly offended. How do you suggest they don't want the pay of criminals? Give me a break. It's the politicians. Once again, it comes back to the politicians, which comes back to leadership, which is why I bang on about it. This war can be won. And here's the thing. Your perspective, I've always had this perspective, so I'm pretty lucky, I guess. But you have a couple of kids, and I can tell you, if anybody puts a joint anywhere near my kids, I might have a less measured response, say, than a policeman. How dare you smash my child up? Whatever you do to my kid, I'll do to you tenfold, and just, not you, but...
Hypothetical me.
Oh, beware the bear. Because there's a difference when you're a parent. There's an old adage in the military. Subbies shouldn't, captains can, majors must. Subbies, meaning lieutenants, shouldn't get married. Captains can, majors must. There's an ancient wisdom in that, because you want your young fighters to be 10 foot tall and bulletproof. But when you get to be a major, you want them to be a little more measured in the sacrifice of human life. And getting married and having kids does that to you, and that's just normal. That's not a flash of inspiration. This is quite normal stuff. You understand differently because all of a sudden you've got a young life that you're responsible for, and you are acutely aware of every threat to that child. And a country that smokes itself to death with dope, forget it.
Well, do you really think that smoking itself to death with dope is a real option? I mean, it's legalized in quite a lot of places, in like a lot of states in America. Canada's legalized it. I mean, I think the bigger threat to kids is not actually the smoking of the dopes. I think a lot of kids have their heads screwed on properly, and if they want to experiment, they'll often experiment without mucking up their life. But and that's I think that's my personal belief is the area we should be focusing on. But I think what would get kids in more trouble is going and experimenting with their friends, which I don't think we can stop, and I don't even think we should stop. But then them getting arrested by the police for having this plant in their pocket, which is going to give them a high for a few hours. They're going to have a good night's sleep, and they're going to wake up the next day ready to go.
Yeah, this generation, and by this generation I mean anybody younger than me, which is just about everybody, has lost the understanding of the value of deterrence, because there is no deterrence anymore. Some guy was on the radio the other day, he beat up a copper, bit him, punched him out, and he got a community service order or something. There's no deterrence. Until people realise that there's a price to pay for your actions, then they won't learn. That's how life is. Darwin Awards, classic. But society seems intent on not making people held to account. No, kids should not be smoking this stuff. This stuff is not good. And I just can't wait for the stats to come out of the US about legalised marijuana and the great victory for liberty that it is. And it's a great victory for liberty. It's no way to build a nation though. It's not. And my perspective is national, my perspective is state, and then local, and then family.
Well, I mean, there would have been a lot of people smoking dope during the hippie movement of like the 1960s in America.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's a new thing. In fact, the statistics are saying that the average age of marijuana smokers are growing older, right? It's from 29 to 34. And I think that a lot of people, I think people should be trusted to be able to, if they want to pursue that, right? To go and do it without the threat of the government, you know, there to go and put them in jail. Because I mean, let's take that of what's good. Like, I guess there's always a line and there's always a discussion. There's always like a grey area and middle ground. But when the government is solely looking for a utilitarian approach to how to build a good country, that's pretty dangerous, I think. And I think that like there's a lot of things we would be better off not doing, but we should just let people do it anyway. Like alcohol is like much more personally dangerous and also much more dangerous to communities, right? The alcohol fueled violence, like drunk driving, like can you like I'm not going to ask you about, well, let's say the kids in general, right? I would be, assuming I have the same mind at 30 that I do at 21, which may or may not be, I'd be much more comfortable if my kid comes and says to me, hey, I got a choice between going out with the boys to the pubs and smashing 10, 12 beers or stay home and smoke some joints and watch a movie. I think it's much healthier and safer for them to stay home and smoke some dope.
Yeah, I prefer my son to come to me and say, I'm going out for a couple of beers, Dad, and I know that he knows that 2 and 3 is enough, and let it go at that. And this is the point I'm trying to get to. We as individuals need to know what's right and wrong, and we have to pass that on to the next generation, what's right and wrong. And what's right and wrong in a small r, right and wrong, okay? What works best? What's best for you? Is it best to go have 12 beers? It's insane.
Sure.
It's stupid. Similarly, so is the other stuff, is my point. It's not which of these two bad things is worse. I'm just saying, if you've got a society that knows what's best, then it won't go down that way. But once again, if you let the marijuana in, then the same argument applies to ice, and the same argument applies to, and applies to, and applies to, and all of a sudden you've got the whole country spaced out on dope of some description. We've lost this generation. In fact, you can probably go back maybe 2, have lost the idea of what is moral, and again, small m moral. What's best? What's right and wrong? What endures for the future? What contributes to a good future? Can't tell anymore. And I can give you example after example. Okay, a really crass example that you think won't have an equivalency, but it is. We have so lost our ability to pick right from wrong, or good from bad, or better from worse. We have women in this country who've been taught that they can treat their babies when they're pregnant like medical waste, up until including the moment of birth. Now, a country that can't see the wrongness in that, and I think full-term abortion, it's legal in Tasmania, Victoria, Queensland, and they want, Penny Wong and Tanya Plibersek and Emily List from Labor want it to be nationwide. People have lost the ability to pick right from wrong. That's the problem we're facing right now. And in a libertarian society, it'd be great if we knew what people knew that. And they didn't then say, when they cocked up, can you please look after me? No, you want to take responsibility and it's on you, then okay, I get that, but that's not how it works.
But, okay. I appreciate that. And I think people would usually be better off without a marijuana habit, right? I think, or almost always. But,
that's all I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of people that get arrested. Is that a necessary price to pay for having, for not having those other drugs become more normalised than they are?
I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I don't know. I'd have to look at that. Is there a better way to solve the problem than, I've got a joint and you spend 10 years in jail? I know that's not the example, but you get. I'm taking it to extreme to show to support your point that there can be silliness in application of the law. I'm not sure what the detail is on that, so I don't know. Is there a better way to do business? Possibly, but once again, it's not top of my mind. It's an issue that's there. I guess I've got other things I need to think about. I've only got 24 hours in the day like everybody else.
Okay, well, I'd like to finish up and take this to a deeper, more philosophical point. You said a lot of people, this generation in particular, has lost the ability to see right and wrong. Now, listening to what you've said about the government at this point, you would probably also think the government might have lost its ability to judge right and wrong. Well, who should be setting the benchmark for right and wrong? Because in my mind, or in the libertarian's mind, it should be individual people, right? And when the government does the drug thing, that they're then taking that morality and putting a stand on it, right? But would you be looking to the government as should the government be playing that active role of moral arbiter, or do you think, or what do you think?
The government as moral arbiter is probably the worst of all possible outcomes. No, I don't trust the government much at all, least of all to be the moral arbiter. So it's not a moral issue, it's just, this is, and your point is well made, it really is, so well done. But it's not about it being the moral arbiter, saying the cost to the community is greater than we should be expected to pay. So in that sense, no, the government shouldn't be the moral arbiter. All authority comes from the individual, but the individual needs to be informed and educated as to what the consequences are, and I don't think it has been. I think it's been lied to, it's been deceived, information has been omitted, so it is incapable of understanding what's going on. They've been intentionally lied to because there have been forces that have been wanting to undermine all that has made Western democracy strong and good, and it's been undermined for 50, 60, 70 years now, to the point where, as I say, people don't know anymore. They think that what's around them today is normal. It's not normal, it's not natural, it's not desirable. It is. But if they had access to the information that people like you, me, have, because we investigate this stuff to a great degree, they'd be horrified. But they don't. They switch on the news, there's a story about a politician, there's a story about something at a work site, and then the last news story is the cat was rescued from the tree, and they go to bed happy thinking the world is good. But they don't get the news, they get nothing like the news. And Trump's a perfect example. If you ask anybody, I got asked this morning, do you think Trump will run in 2020, was it 2020? 2022?
Yeah, 2020, Joel?
2020. Will he run in 2020? I said he won't.
We've got the facts, man, out the back.
Yeah, he won't only run, he's going to win in a landslide. And this person looked at me shocked and horrified, and I said, lowest Hispanic unemployment, lowest black unemployment, lowest food stamps, highest increase in new businesses started, and away we went. And popularity well above 50%. Well above 50%.
54%.
54, there you go, 54%. Perfect. Now
you asked the Donald, it would be 75 without a fake Russia investigation.
So there you go. So if you told those numbers to Australia, they'd be shocked because they listen to the ABC and the commercial networks. Now the commercial networks, news services, they're not news services. Their job is to sell ad space. So they put up stuff that they know people want to watch. And it's a bit like, a reality show. Shocking stories that will attract a bit of attention. So I don't expect...
Neighbour from hell.
I don't expect, channels 10, 9 and 7, not that I watch them, I don't expect them to give me news. So I don't. ABC's different though, we pay for that and they give us nothing but propaganda. So there's a problem there. If the people had access to information and knew what was going on, they would make very different decisions, but they have been systematically lied to for so long now that they're making the best decisions they can with the information available to them. Because they're busy, they're working, they trust people to do the right job. Well, they're not. But they would, if the truth was out, they would swing around. Because people are generally, and this is true of Liberal and Labor, most of them are small c conservative, is they know what works and what doesn't work. But they've been dragged away from where they comfortably sit by agendas that are destructive to Australia and our national interests.